guys, welcome to Marketing Decoded. I'm Abby and this is
Kavan.
And today we're going to be talking about different types of marketing jargon and what they mean. So we're going to be splitting up our jargon into two kind of categories. The first being graphic design, website design, and video. And then we're going to get into all about social media design, social media marketing, and just digital marketing in general. So the first of the two topics we're going to be jumping into is graphic design, website design, and videos.
So Abby, what is our first terminology, brand identity?
Well, brand identity is the visual and stylistic elements that represent a company, including its logo, colors, and fonts. We talked about this a lot more in our most recent podcast with me and Hunter, really breaking down into what brand identity is, but that is basically just kind of sums it up. It really incorporates not just your logo, your colors, and your fonts, but how you're speaking as the overall voice that you're presenting as a brand, and just the overall feel that you're presenting to your audience.
Mm-hmm. I think of stuff like Netflix, HBO Max. We're very streaming service oriented, so those tend to have a lot of interaction. I think later on we're probably going to dive a little bit into like fast food Twitter accounts or X accounts. Fast food X accounts. Exactly. So.
Another word we wanted to talk about is call to action. How would you describe call to action?
That's perfect because I do a lot of video content. And so basically call to action is something we put at the end of that to entice people to go visit the business, to go see what they offer. For example, go check out our service today. Just something like that. Probably a little bit more less basic than that. I feel a little on the spot right now, so I can't give you a really good one, but I'll tell you if I had a really good client that really was invested in Davis Marketing Company, and they came to us, you would have an amazing CTA trust.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't just apply to video. It can also be at the end of a flyer, in the caption for a social post, really just wanting to emphasize FOMO, the fear of missing out for the audience.
So one word we've actually heard thrown around quite a lot in our meetings is stuff like mock-ups. Abby, if you don't mind introducing them to the wondrous world of mock-ups.
So a mock-up is, let's say you know what you want from us. You want a flyer, you want some promotional items, maybe even a logo. We take what your feedback is as the client, and we create almost like a rough draft, first version. So if you wanted a flyer for your upcoming party, we would get all of the information from you, ask you what your visual idea is, and then we create it, and then we send you a mock-up. So it might not be the final print-ready file, but it's just something that you can look at to represent what the final product is going to look like before really diving further into development or print production.
Mm-hmm. And it helps our clients a lot. The fact that they can see what their stuff's going to actually look like.
Mm-hmm. Especially with promotion.
It means they're going to sink some money. They're going to invest. It's just promotionals for sure, like T-shirts and all that kind of stuff.
Almost being able to try on before you buy.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, like you said, but especially T-shirts for sure, like that. Different colors too.
I think.
Yeah, it's good.
See how your logo will look on different items.
Oh yeah, and especially with sizing too. You want to size a logo to be really good on a T-shirt, because if you don't have it sized very well and you do a mock-up, it doesn't look very good. You show them how the logo will look at certain scales. If it's too small, too big, if it doesn't work, also whatever. Mock-ups are cool. They're just cool.
Do you think you could explain what UX/UI is?
So UI is basically the layout of buttons and interactive sort of different components of a website, video game, all sorts of stuff. Anything that's like an application that you can interact with. So
what exactly does the acronym UX/UI mean?
So UI is user interface and UX is user experience, which should tell you a little bit of what it means. So user experience refers to the all-encompassing nature of basically an entire interface of a brand, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like branding, but then when it comes to UI, it's like a subset within the category of user experience that refers to the interactive buttons of a website, video game, all that kind of stuff. So so basically it's like if you had circles, it would be a bigger circles, UX, and the smaller circle inside is UIs.
Thanks for explaining.
So one thing that we have to know the difference between when it comes to our jobs as marketing is, especially graphic designers and videography, everything really, especially with print, is what is the difference between CMYK and RGB?
That's a great question. Well, CMYK, it actually stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Don't ask me why K stands for black. We'll never know.
So,
And you want to use these colors whenever you're designing something for print. So flyers, billboards, promotional items, just because that's when we send those designs off to the printer, they're able to mix the different levels of ink, whether it be cyan, magenta, and yellow, or yellow and black, to create any color in the rainbow that we would need. When it comes to digital and digital screens, we want to use RGB, which is red, green, and blue. And although the universal rule is typically use CMYK for print and RGB for digital screens, it can mix up a little bit due to some printers using RGB for printing, some printers using cyan, magenta, yellow, and black for printing. But really the key is talking to your printer and who you know you're going to be printing your products through and asking them what they use.
yeah, because you know, we're both students and we both had classes recently regarding graphic design, like maybe last year. We graduated recently. And so you've had things like color management. So this is really good for you. You know that you really know the difference between the two. Mm-hmm. So I have a question about that, CMYK versus RGB, actually. So I do use those things. I do know the difference, but I'm less print oriented. I'm more digital. So when it comes to CMYK and RGB, what happens when you print RGB without having CMYK in consideration?
So if you design a graphic using red, green, and blue to design it, but you know that it's going to be printed, you're just going to have to be okay with the color change that happens. It might not be the exact color that you see on your screens. And that's really the whole point behind it is when you're looking at color on your screen, the light is being emitted from the back of the screen. So you're seeing the light come through your computer and the colors that's being presented. When you're looking at something print, the light source is coming from above you onto the paper or on whatever you're looking at. And so it gets into science. Don't ask me too much about that. Like I'm an art major, but just how the colors are showing up to you, which is very important in brand identity because there are so many hues of different colors. You want to make sure that you are staying true to your colors and that those are going to be what show up on your final product.
I actually have a funny story about this because I worked at Georgia Southern University, local school, and they have a Starbucks there, and they printed off an RGB design without considering the CMYK stuff, and so the coffee looked green. Mm-hmm. It looked like matcha. It's not supposed to be matcha. It's like caramel swivel milk dairy thing, and then they print out grass color. So yes. As she said...
And who wants to drink green caramel swizzle?
I thought you were about to ask me who wants to drink matcha, because I was about to say, me.
You don't drink it.
No, I let it sit on the desk.
Another thing that can be confusing for some clients, like CMYK versus RGB, is raster versus vector image. Do you think you could explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. As said before, I work in digital, so I love using vector. And the reason why is because vector is scalable without quality loss. So if you have a logo, most logos are in vector. Actually, kind of a rookie mistake is to make your logos in raster, because when it comes to raster, if you scale it up too big and it's a raster, it's gonna look a little pixelated. You don't want your thing to look like it's from Mario Brothers from the 80s. You want it to look like it's from high quality, sharp edge, and that's vector. So you have to learn the difference if you're doing logos and stuff, branding, all that kind of thing. So because raster is more pixel based and vector is more scalable without quality, you're gonna want to choose vector first.
And you may be wondering, why do I need to know this? You need to know this for your business because when it comes to working with a marketing agency, you want to know what questions you need to be asking and what files you need to obtain from that agency to then keep using for your brand identity. If you're only getting raster images like JPEGs from the people who create your logo, you're going to have a hard time furthering your brand identity and using it to the best of its ability with, like you said, putting it on different things like promotional items and using it in different sizing.
One word you might hear a lot during our media days, content shoots would be B-roll. And so, Abby, will you do us the honors of explaining what B-roll is?
Middle footage that is used to support the main footage in a video. So let's say we're coming to film you a commercial and you know that you specifically want to talk about a new package that you are presenting from your brand. We might get some film footage of that specific package, but then we might also just get some supplemental footage of maybe like you walking around your office, the package being put together, just to support the main idea and be able to make the video as long as we need it to be.
Yeah, because we have specific stipulations when it comes to how long video should be. We know from analytics and from also just using social media on ourselves through our own experience that a video should be about 60 seconds, sometimes even 30. People's attention spans are dwindling, which is not a negative thing. I mean, it's not something it's entirely negative, and as a result, we have to cater to it, the trend of that. So it's great to have those different lengths of time and stuff. So,
do you think you could dive in a little more on what a motion graphic is?
Yes, I started doing motion graphics really early, and what I enjoy the most about it, which is a good way to define it, is you have a lot of freedom in terms of manipulating shapes, manipulating logos. Kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. You want your client to send you an EPS or a PDF or a .ai file, and the reason being, or SVG, scalable vector graphic, and the reason being is because that way, as the motion designer, I can bring it into my application and I can make your logo do all sorts of cool things. I can make it pop in. I can animate every individual element of that logo. So let's say you have a logo that has circular text around it and you have a symbol in the middle. I can separate those things as different layers and make them appear in different ways. And that's what motion graphics essentially is the incorporation of all the elements that you've given us and animating it in a very, very tuned in way. And then also motion graphics encompasses a little bit of video editing, but that's mostly how I would describe it.
Do you think you could elaborate a little further on the difference between a motion graphic and just a regular video?
Yeah. So video editing at its prime definition would be the composition of clips along a timeline. And motion graphics would probably be at its prime definition, like I said earlier, a more individualized manipulation of certain objects. That's not to say one's better than the other. They all have their uses. So video editing kind of gives motion graphics the frame to be creative within it, because you can't just do, most of the time you can't just do a cool motion graphic and that's it, because you need to have content to put it on. And so when you have those composition of clips, you're able to put them together in a way that's very seamless.
That makes sense.
Another tool in our designer toolbox, motion graphic toolbox, whatever you want to refer it to, our creative toolbox, is color correction. And so, Abby, do you mind giving the folks at home a little bit of information on what exactly color correction is, how you use it, what's the point of it?
So color grading / correction is the process of adjusting the color, contrast, and brightness of a video to enhance the mood and the tone of the scene. When you're editing a video in the post-production stage, one thing that we have worked on recently is Splash in the Burrow. Whenever we're putting out content for Splash in the Burrow, we want it to be bright, we want it to be saturated, we want it to be fun. We want it to look like somewhere a kid would want to be playing. So when I'm going to make the reels and the TikTok content for that, I like to bring up the saturation. I like to bring up the blues and definitely just make the island fun mood pop while doing that color grading.
Yeah, and that plays into a little bit, I think, as your role as a static graphic designer for like social media posts, right? Like the whole needing to know some color theory to attract certain audiences. Was that kind of how it goes?
Because I believe that colors can really change your mood depending on how they're coming across. Like a blue might make you feel fun and safe and calm, versus a red might make you think of construction, might make you think of manly. Like
I was thinking anger.
Well, we don't ever want to be angry as a brand. But yes, red does sometimes portray anger.
Yeah. And there's it's really cool. It's like a subconscious element to it too, right? Like it's like a deeply rooted psychological part of it. Yeah. And so that's really, there's a lot of science in marketing for sure. We don't save people's bodies, but we save their minds, and we give them the tool. We give them products that they want to have. Yes.
So talking a little bit about the post-production process, do you think that you could describe basically what post-production is?
Yeah. So post-production is essentially the latter stages of a project. This can apply to a lot of different things, but the terminology really applies mainly to film, but it can be more than one thing. But for this example, I'll just give you film. And so with film, you have things like color correction. You'll have things where you want to put motion graphics in. You'll have voiceovers, which also kind of suggests audio editing. You're not always going to have excellent takes. For example, on the podcast, I sometimes have to go back and edit the audio, or my boss Gabby will also have to edit the audio just so we can remove extraneous things we don't want to have. And so that's what post-production really encompasses. In terms of like graphic design, though, you tend to do certain things like that too, right?
I would say post-production in the terms of graphic design is going to be ranging from getting all of your designs print ready, sending it off to the printer, and really getting all of your files together to send off to your client.
So like file organization, do you think that would count as post-production for design?
I think you could say that file organization could count because...
You're really good at that. The post-production, like the file organization, I'm very terrible at it. So that's it. Actually, that is interesting to hear that it counts as post-production.
Well, I'm a woman.
Yeah. And so that leads us into our second topic, which is more of the social media terminologies, marketing terminologies related to social media, all that kind of stuff. So one thing in this category would be impressions. What are impressions?
Basically, impressions are the number of times an ad or a piece of content is shown, regardless of whether or not it's clicked. So basically, think about if you don't have Spotify Premium, you get those yucky ads in between each song. Every time you hear the ad, that is an impression. You might not click on the ad and actually go to that brand's website, but it's still making an impression. You're still seeing it. You're still thinking about it. And it's just basically a metric to be able to measure how many people your content is reaching.
Interesting. Yeah, I never considered Spotify the 30 minutes of free uninterrupted listening as a impression kind of thing, but that makes sense too. Yeah, the impressions do encompass a lot of things. Then that kind of goes back to a little bit of what I mentioned earlier too with analytics as well, right? Like you analyze all the numbers and stuff, and that counts too. And it helps us. That helps us guide. I don't know if you'd agree, but it helps us guide our way into doing certain design decisions as well. Like, is there a thing that you noticed that based through analytics that you continue doing because of those numbers?
One thing that I've noticed personally with our own social media is I feel like whenever we do something that really talks about our team or personalities, that tends to get a lot of likes, a lot of impressions, that people really want to see who we are as a team. So we're able to take those numbers, take that information, and then change what we're putting out. We can put out more of that, leading to more impressions coming to us.
Interesting. It's also something rooted in psychology too, right? Like when people see other people, they just happen to
connect.
Yeah, like it's a community aspect, which again that's a big part of marketing too, I would say, right? Is the whole community thing, especially if you're in a place like where we are, which is Statesboro, and it's very
community
vibe. Yeah. Like even our school, our campus, our on-campus destination, Georgia Southern, their slogan is small campus, like small town feel, something like that. So
speaking of reaching your audience, I don't really understand what lead generation is. Do you think you could talk about that a little bit?
Lead generation is, a lot of people would just say it's what marketing is defined as, but it's basically like how you bring people in. It's the process of attracting and converting people into being interested in your services. With emails, you get this a lot. So you have things from like Books A Million. I get so many from Books A Million. That's like, come stop by our shop today. We have a discount. Or today is National Harry Potter Month. I don't know if that's a thing.
Like Galactic with Free Comic Book Day.
Galactic Comics in Kansas, Statesboro, Georgia. They are awesome. They have a free comic book day. Everybody has a free comic book day, but between you and I, it's just Galactic. And so May 3rd, tomorrow. Well, you'll probably be seeing this a little bit later. Hope you went. If you didn't,
you missed out.
Go next year, or better yet, just go to Galactic anyway.
We're generating leads for Galactic right now.
That's a great example. Is Galactic Comics and Games lead generation right here? And so that's a pretty good, I think, a definition of lead generation.
So speaking of Galactic, I would say that we're its target audience, which is basically the specific group of people that a business or brand aims to reach with its marketing. This can include characteristics such as age, gender, your personal interest, where you're located, or even your behaviors. You want to talk a little bit more about target audience?
Yeah. Where you're located is scary, but it does play a role. There's a few stories with this. Like if you go to Facebook, if you go to Meta, my bad guys. If you go to Meta, you can actually download a transcript of all the stuff that they have on you. And it's very specific, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's very specific. That's my reaction exactly. Like I don't know if you ever done that before. Like it's terrifying. They have stuff.
They're like Abby likes cats.
Yeah, they include like implications just like based on what you click. TikTok loves algorithm. I know you'd be scrolling that and you'd be getting things that you don't even like.
Abby likes cats and might have anxious attachment.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that they know a lot of stuff like that. They tend to get in trouble a lot for that too. How they use that data.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting stuff there.
So now that we've talked about target audience, another subsection of that is segmentation. Do you think you can describe what that is?
Yeah, so it's a lot of things like I'd be bringing up categories so much in this video, but there's another example of something that's categorical. So you have the target audience, and then you have the segments of the tiny segments in the target audience, and that kind of goes what we said a second ago, which is you have big things, certain demographics. So people have cats, people who have long hair, people who have receding hairline, people who have dogs, people who have certain kind of socks, they have all these specific things, and they're reaching these people specifically through the data they collect from all the places that you use, the services you use. Some people say the microphones as well on your phone,
And I feel like this is a good for companies that might have too large of a target audience, like an electric company, for example. Everyone needs power. But how you're marketing to those specific segment groups is going to be different. Like, some people might be worried about keeping their lights on to take care of their pets. They want to make sure their pet's automatic litter box is going to run all night long.
Yeah.
And so you might want to target towards them versus someone who might not have pets, might have kids. You want to target, you can play as many video games as you want on our internet.
Fortnite.
So really just if you have your target audience, but it's a little too broad, segmentation helps you be able to break that down and know how to market to each of the people in your target audience.
Yeah. Fortnite is a really good example of that too, right? Like Fortnite has like the item shop where you can buy certain skins, so they know what certain people like. So yeah, it's really cool. Mm-hmm. So another metric that we want to use with marketing is KPI, which stands for Key Performance Indicator. So do you mind explaining a little bit of that for us?
KPI is any measurable value that shows how well a campaign, ad, or strategy is performing for your brand. If your goal is to increase sales, then the KPI might be the number of purchases that come from a social media ad. If your goal is to build brand awareness, a KPI could be reach or impressions on a specific post. Basically, just any measurable value that shows you how well you're doing at your marketing.
Wow. And again, analytics. Analytics are so important, and this is a big part of that too, right? Key performance indicator, performance.
Numbers.
How your business is doing. Netflix loves KPIs. Netflix, they use it to indicate what shows they keep and deny, right? Like you had that one show, The Society, that got canned before it could.
I'll never forgive that.
Yeah.
It wasn't even doing bad. It had good KPIs.
Yeah.
It had good kids.
COVID. I think COVID ruined it, the filming process. So put an asterisk on that example, but you can still learn a little bit from that example. Stranger Things is on like season 20 because the KPI is
great KPIs through the roof.
KPI is as big as like a Scooby-Doo sandwich,
KPI
man.
to the moon.
Yes, to the moon, to Andromeda Galaxy. They are spin-offs too. So that it's a yeah. So big services like Netflix use it. So another acronym that I want to bring up is B2B.
Well, business to business is any type of transaction where one business sells its products to another business. So basically, DMC sells business to business because we sell our advertising and marketing services to other businesses. Another example of this could be Netflix buying out the rights to a certain TV/movie for their platform. A popular example of this is The Office because it was on Netflix, but as we know, Peacock bought it from them.
Yes.
So that is an example of businesses selling to another business.
And that happens a lot in other shows too. But The Office that was the biggest
So how are you going to take that off Netflix?
Knife stab. Yeah, I've never seen it. That was the biggest knife stab.
That's what you watch to go to sleep.
Exactly.
Put it on.
That's my 1-year-old son's lullaby at night. Is The Office.
You haven't gotten sleep since they took it off.
Yeah, I have it. He's grown up, and I don't know how his future is going to be because he can't watch The Office at night like that. Like what? Like does Netflix not realize that the effect of marketing on kids? But yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that, and also there's more technical ones too. Like I know some streaming services will buy like coding type stuff to be able to have new features on their applications. Video games will do things like this too, where they'll buy out like an entire patent. Patents are really key here, is showcasing patents, things, cool things you can buy with your money as a business.
The next word we're going to talk about is cross-channel marketing.
Yes. And so basically what cross-channel marketing is there's so many different platforms of marketing these days. So you have email, you have social media, you have TV. You have so many different variations of things that you have to figure out how to incorporate all of them into a campaign, how to mix and match, when to use the same things over and over. Because when you're marketing, you want to focus on working really as fast as you can while still ensuring the quality level. So as a designer, you have to make things sized to different platforms, different social medias. So as a designer, how do you make sure yourself personally that these things are consistent?
One thing that I always make sure that I do to keep my branding consistent throughout all of the different channels is always making sure you're having the right colors in there, whether that be the CMYK colors or the hex code or the RGB colors, making sure I'm getting their logo in it. I'm not warping the logo at all or putting a drop shadow that shouldn't be there. Maybe using motifs. So like one specific client that I can think about that I use a lot of motifs for is advanced auto body. So if I'm designing social media for them, one texture that I have is almost like that like steel kind of work toolbox pattern. So I like to make sure that I can use that both in my social designs, and then if I'm going to do a flyer for them or a billboard, I'm also able to use that. And then when people see it, they see the colors, the logo, and the motif that's being used on all the other advertisements, and they can think in their brain like, oh, that's advanced auto body. We know it, we love it, we're going there.
Yes, like Coca-Cola. You know how they have like the signature red? You want to make sure that red is consistent on a billboard. This kind of goes to our CMYK RGB thing, because when you print that red on CMYK versus RGB,
it might come out a little more orangey, a little more pinkish.
And nobody want an orange coat.
Exactly.
That's Fanta.
If I saw an orange coat, I'd think it was Fanta.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, Fanta? I'm not a big fan of Fanta. I don't know. It's my personal preference, but yeah, it is. So that's the importance of that. Thanks for joining us on yet another glorious episode of Davis Marketing Company's new podcast, Marketing Decoded. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed and learned lots of cool things. You will be joining me on the pros and cons of AI alongside my other glorious coworker, Ashley Corvin, who has a great dog named Molly. So please join us. Please don't actually see this video. Please join us as we divulge on what we personally think about the pros and cons of AI.
And so thank you to our guests.
Thank you to our guests here, which are basically forming the composition of the Last Supper, and they are in
Snoopy?
No particular order.
Snoopy?
Yes.
What's that one's name?
Bonnie.
Cow?
And
Snoopy? Or Splashy?
Snoopy, who fell.
Elephant?
He fell. He was just so flabbergasted by the marketing terms we used.
Gabby's little anger octopus?
Yes. And actually, right, I know we're about to end, but I'll do one more thing. This is Splash in the Burrow, and I'm using them as an example. This is an example of branding right here. How so? Because it's giving a cute, cuddly atmosphere with the plush.
And it has the logo on it.
Yes, it does. And that's another example of CMYK versus RGB. Because, anyway, Marketing Decoded. Please join us next time. Thank you. Bye.